What's good, YouTube? This week, we got a very, very special episode with Derrick Dotson. He's here to talk about his book and gun laws. Tap in. My name is Derrick Dotson, and I'm the founder of the Black Sanctuary. I'm here to provide some law enforcement education for you so you can think critically about safe police interaction. A little disclaimer here. These are not my ideas. This is what it is. It's important for you to know the laws for where you live and for what you do.
Welcome to the Barber Game Podcast. I go by the name of DJ Meek Chops.
Hey people, this is Smith.
What it do? This is Marcus.
What's good, everybody? This your boy Merv Mill on the check-in, and this is the
Barber Game Podcast.
Not too much, so I'm gonna just jump right into it. This week's episode, we got real special guest, the CEO and founder of Black Sanctuary. Over 20 years in law enforcement, private detail included. Without further ado, man, D-Dot, man, what's good, bro?
I'm happy to be here, man. I appreciate you guys having me.
Yep.
Definitely wanted to share this information with you guys, and I get requests. I'm getting a lot of requests from people for podcasts, and I just thought if I'm going to sit down with folks, I want to sit down with people that I actually know. So as I continue to build this empire, you guys will be the first to say, yeah, we sat them down first.
Yeah, that's fire. That's fire. That's dope.
Yeah, man. But like Mikael was saying, I started in law enforcement. Actually, I started as an intern working for the feds, and that was my very first internship. Got turned on to that. I actually thought I was going to become a psychologist, and took a hard turn at that point. And I started in the U.S. courts, and with that, you start working with a lot of different agencies, right? The U.S. Attorney's Office for one, which was great, the FBI, DEA, ATF, and you start seeing a lot of that stuff early on, and right off the top, like a lot of the myths started to become dispelled, right? Like I started looking at certain things like, that's not how I thought it was,
right.
What it was supposed to be. And you see that and you're like, okay, and you start forming a different opinion. And the thing about the law, though, nobody cares about your opinion.
Right.
All right?
Right.
If you think it's about right and wrong, you're going to be in for a shock, okay? It has nothing to do with good and bad, right and wrong. It's facts. It's what's legal, what's illegal, and can you prove it? That's it. And if you're thinking anything else outside of that, I've seen people get really shocked. And so and then going on from there, I started, I came out here, my then fiance, not my wife, she works for Microsoft. I didn't care that I was coming out here to Seattle, and I knew I was going to go into the feds at some point, but they had a federal hiring freeze, and so I couldn't get on, and so I got on with the state of Washington. I was a field investigator for the Washington State Department of Corrections, and the cool thing about starting with them, especially at that time, I kind of call it the heyday. If you're an East Coaster like me, you're driven. Right? Like you see the opportunity, and I knew I could do anything I wanted. I could out-hustle anybody out here, and if you were about that, you could go work for anyone. And so I started building up my skill set, firearms, self-defense, etc., investigative skills, a lot of different courses and training, and to be black and had that skill set, especially out here, like, people, they see you.
It puts you ahead of everybody, right?
Quickly.
Yeah.
And so, with that, it just started getting really fun at that point. One of the first agencies I did task force for was Renton PD. I was on their street crimes, actually started with narcotics, and then went into, I was one of the first founding members of the street crimes task force. Then I was pulled in for a DEA assignment for drug enforcement administration. And then I worked for the U.S. Marshals for 3 years, 3.5 years. Then I went into the U.S. courts as an investigator, and then I was done at that point. And then I went into private security, executive protection, where basically you're protecting billionaires.
Celebrities,
right?
top.
Celebrities can't afford executive protection.
Okay. Executive. Oh, so presidential stuff.
It's like private security. It's like Secret Service for billionaires.
Gotcha.
Right. It's that type of thing. It's 24/7. You're protecting the entire family. Worldwide, wherever they go, you go, type thing.
That stuff you see on the movies. No.
You talking about like Floyd Mayweather's type dudes that are
always with them, right? Yeah.
6'8", 350 pounds. No, they don't want that.
They don't want that.
No,
someone to blend in, someone that looks normal.
Yeah.
Exactly. They want someone that has the skill set to handle things, to make things happen. A lot of times they don't want things to happen, right? They don't want that type of, I'm not going to
vibe, energy, all that.
Yeah, but it's also that attention that comes to them.
Right.
And so they want people that can be able to, hey man, he's not going to take that from you. Or, no, he's not going to sign that. Most of them won't be handed things, right? That's how you get served.
Yeah.
And so it's things like that, like you're interfering. It's almost more concierge than it actually is security, but there's, of course, a high security element there. So with that, and a lot of these things happened for me, mainly because, once again, being driven, I sought out extra training. And we're going to talk about training in law enforcement. And these are things that people don't know. And if you knew, you would think differently about law enforcement, good and bad. But I sought out extra training, and the company that I chose were a bunch of veteran special operators, right? If you don't know what special operators are in the military, they are Navy SEAL, Green Beret, Army Rangers, Delta, those folks. And I didn't really realize that at first, didn't understand that. And I had never been around military, growing up. And, if anything, I was told, we don't go into the military. And it was kind of a shock when I went to college. I went to HBCU, Norfolk State, in Virginia. It's the largest naval port in the world. There's nothing but black folks down there. So it was a shock to me. I know it sounds ignorant, but it was really a shock to me. And then, being around those guys really set my skill set way above and beyond. It was really hard to stop me at that point. When I was training, shooting, most people had to interview to become a firearms instructor. And the guy that actually ran it came to me and was like, you have to become an instructor. So what do you mean? He was like, you're killing all of my instructors. I was like, literally, we would go to shoot houses, right? And it's like paintball, but with, they call them soap rounds. It's not paint, it's soap. It actually hurts. It moves at about 400, 500 feet per second. So if you don't actually have protection, it'll break skin.
Oh, no.
Right? So, and definitely you have to have head and eye protection. But we would go in there and, my tactics were completely different, right? Compared to what you're taught in law enforcement. And it was pretty cool, to see that, because in my mind, I'm never good enough, right?
Yeah.
I'm like, man, I got to get this better. No, I screwed that up. And they're like, no, you're killing everybody in here. And so it was kind of cool to have that experience and see that. And so, but one of the things I learned is, if you have that level of skill set, people want you around. And so while I was getting those opportunities for different agencies and getting promoted and those types of things, I was training with them. So I've been training with them since 2004, and right up to this day. And so that's a little bit about my background, how I got started, and how I had all of the opportunities that most people never have.
That's dope. So you took all of that and then you created your own foundation, Black Sanctuary. That's you, right?
Yes.
And then, so tell us a little bit about that and what that means for you and what motivated it, and just
Sure.
unpack that for the listeners a little bit.
Sure. With the Black Sanctuary, this started in 2020, And in 2020, of course, everything that was happening with the high-profile police shootings.
Right.
And
before that a little bit too, right?
Oh, of course, yeah. It had been going on, Michael Brown and Eric Garner
Yeah.
and Laquan, McDonald and all these folks.
Yeah.
And, I knew what was going on, of course, right? This is in the middle of COVID, or beginning of COVID. And I had people calling me. I had friends and family calling me all the time. And it was like, man, you did the law enforcement thing, man. What are they doing? Why are they doing this to us? Why are they shooting us? And in my mind, I know, once again, like, you do something long enough, you start thinking everybody has the same knowledge base you do, right? And so I'm like, what are you talking about? Why? I'm like, I saw the same thing you did, But no, they didn't have to shoot him like that. Why did they do that? I'm like, well, I can tell you why. And I had these same questions, friends, family across the country just calling me irate, hot about it. And then I started paying more attention because I don't actually watch the news. I actually watch more Cartoon Network than I watch the news.
Okay.
And so I tuned in, and next thing you know, I'm like going off on the television. Like, I'm arguing with Don Lemon and Tucker Carlson and Rachel Maddow, and I'm like, no, that it doesn't go like that. The thing with the
So I want to pause right there. Like, so do you feel like it's a narrative, like they switch it, like it's like they twist it to make people irate, to make people, up in arms. I mean,
Uproar and just
a lot of
create
people
chaos.
a lot of people know that. A lot of people, the quote unquote. Well, I won't say I'm in that group, but like I feel like there's that twist, with
They
social
play
media, with
on
all that.
the viewer's emotions.
Right.
There's
all the
no
time.
logic behind it.
The logic is, don't forget, they are built on entertainment. It's
Right.
not news.
Yeah.
All right. If you actually look at what they do, it's about news, it's about entertainment, not news. And so it actually makes sense, because it's not like Walter Cronkite back in the day. If you ever seen any of his broadcasts, and he would just report the news.
Right.
Okay.
There's no commentary.
No, like he just gave the news, and then you bounced and you thought about it the way that you thought about it.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't get their opinion.
They're trying to conform the thought
Yes.
of how you think about it.
Right. And it goes right from white cop shoots black man.
Yeah.
Right? And I'm looking at that like, well, that's messed up. And people are like, yeah, that's Black Lives Matter. I'm like, sure they do. But what does that have to do with what I just saw?
All right.
Well, this white cop shot that black man. That's right. I'm like, yeah, but he needed shot.
He needed to get shot.
And I know it sounds, and I'll get into that, but it doesn't. I don't mean for it to be, insensitive. But when you understand the policies to training, I'm not even going to get into the culture and the mindset. We can do that later. But the policies and training, if you understand that, you will understand how it unfolded and why they did it, right? So I'm aware of that, and I'm looking at that. I'm like, based on all of that, he needed shot, right? Now, it's, it's white cop shoots black man. I don't get that, right?
Yeah.
Because unless that white cop was pressing on his trigger, screaming some racial slurs while he was doing it, then that would actually make sense for that headline.
Right.
That headline is provocative enough to get you feeling some kind of way about it.
Right.
Right?
Before you even know.
Before you know any facts. And then they show a part of the video. They don't show the whole video. They show a piece of it, right? The most provoking thing, don't forget, remember that old phrase, that old, cliche, if it bleeds, it leads. Right? They put that at the top of the broadcast because that's going to get you tuned in. And then you go ahead and you see that and you're upset and you text about it. Then you forward the article and you go online and you start tweeting and talking and book facing all about it, right? You're doing all of that. And it's just like, that's how they get you, right?
It's a distraction.
It is, but it's so uninformed that now, the love protest, this is how we get heard, right? But nobody knew what they were talking about. Right. Like I'm looking at some of these signs, and I'm like, that's not a thing. What are you talking about? So it's like I look at that, and I'm like, these are the things I want people to know, especially when it comes down to the media. So yeah, the way the media approaches this in summary is definitely, it is provocative, It's meant to be that way. That's how they, keep their, they get their sponsorships and
Well, you
all
have
of
to
that.
remember that the news, those channels are 24 hours. They have to fill it with content
Yep.
for 24 hours every day.
Facts would get boring real quick,
Right,
right?
right.
So where do you go to avoid that? Where do you try to find just the news as it without being led? There's no online articles, no sites, no places like that.
You basically have to do your own research,
Yeah.
right? But when it comes down to this subject matter, back to the Black Sanctuary, that's why I started it, right? Because I wanted to make sure that you were informed. You knew what I know, right? Because if you're armed with the information that I know, you're going to make better decisions on how you interact with cops, better decision how you interact with the criminal justice system. When you want police reform and you're talking about that, now you know, right? If you knew what I knew, if people knew what I knew, we'd have, things would be totally different already. But that's what I'm having to build because it wasn't happening. And so, yeah, that's how all of that popped off in the beginning.
That's dope. And it's not just for kids, but kids is your focus, right?
No. Kids, I wrote, my first time author. Book releases this
Good
week.
job.
Yeah, The Police
And
and
it's
Me.
tomorrow, right?
Tuesday.
Oh, Tuesday.
Tuesday.
Yep.
Yep. And so it, so that's going to be my first book.
Big ups to that, man. I know that
Thanks,
a lot of
man.
work, man.
Took a lot of work. It's beautiful. It turned out, it's one thing to see the images that your illustrator, creates on screen, but to actually hold it in your hand, have the idea, and then feel that finished product in your hand it's an addiction now,
So
man.
you're
I'm
coming
already
to
working on the
fruition.
next book.
So, all right. I was just about to say, you got another project
Oh,
already?
yeah, no,
Okay.
it's going to be a series. My
Yep.
son's name is Duke. He's 3, but I aged him for the book. He's 6 years old in the book, just so we can have better dialogue between father and son. But in short, it's a story. The Police and Me is a story about, my son. It's a black father and son that get pulled over by police, and it's told from Duke's narrative. And it's his narrative, it's his perspective. And he's anxious about police based on the things that he's heard. All right. And so you see his reactions in the book. He's very shy. He's kind of nervous, that type of thing. And then I kind of explained to him, well, this is what police do. We meet a black police chief. He's actually the former assistant chief of Renton PD. I actually put him in the book. It's his likeness and all. And so we go through the police station. He meets certain people. Fast forward, I teach him. He has questions about what happens, if he has to talk to police, and I explain to him what to do. And it's the imagery is really cool because it's some nice father and son type moments in the book. And I wanted that, I wanted people to see, strong black males in a children's book, right? And so I wanted that. So between Kevin and I in that book, you'll see that, the imagery is really cool. So it's not just for kids. That book also came because of parents. I had parents come to me saying, "Hey, man, I got a teenager."
The talk, right?
Yeah.
The
talk. That was actually my first. That was actually my first presentation. Was called the Talk 2.0.
I like the way you put that too. That was dope. I peeped that. That was fire. Just how you said that, like the talk 2.0. Because normally thinking people were like talk is like sex and birds and the bees and all that. So it's like it was dope. Yeah, it was like the other talk. You know what I'm saying? So
I had that happened. I was in the federal building right here in Seattle, and I was in the elevator. It was an older white. He was a defense attorney, and I wasn't thinking. I'm thinking the black talk, and he said like, Dotson, got to have that talk with my kid. And I'm like, it's an important talk, I mean, you got to know. You got to know what to do when you have to deal with these folks.
He's thinking like cucumber.
And he's like, deal with folks? What folks?
what kind of game you think we playing?
And I'm like, what are you talking about? He's like, sex. I'm like, oh, man, that's not what black folks talk about.
Yeah.
What do you mean? I'm like, we have to talk about survival. Yeah. We have to talk about what it is to interact with authorities and government authorities and stuff like that. It's like, oh my goodness. And I'm like, yeah, man, it's a different situation. So yeah, my first presentation I did for companies out here was called the Talk 2.0. So I took that and made it for adults and just kind of went in a little bit deeper about, dealing with law enforcement and things like that. But, you know, when it came down to, I had black parents coming to me saying, I have a black teenager that's about to start driving.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
All right. I have no idea what to tell them. I'm scared to death.
Right.
I've also met black kids, teens, that said that they didn't want to get their license because they were scared of what would happen.
If they get
And
pulled
I'm
over.
And I'm like, yo, you missing out on life.
Right.
Because of fear? And don't get me talking about fear, but the thing is that, you know, that's something that it bothered me. And I'm like, all you need is the right information.
Right.
And so, so that's another thing that really kind of kept me going early on. It was kind of an early driver for how I was going to handle this business.
Yeah, man. How do you think, just in dealing with police, you know, how should just the average, I guess, person feel comfortable? Like, I know you got the book and you'll be teaching, but just kind of what are some things, I guess, do's and don'ts, you would say, you know, just to kind of stay safe and make it home?
Would you say, are you talking about just general interaction?
We could talk about traffic stops,
Traffic
you know.
stops. I'll start with
just for the kids, you know, that are kind of worried about what's going on out there.
Yeah, traffic stops. You know, I have a lot of experience with traffic stops, not just professionally, but personally. I've been pulled over 4 dozen times in my life. 37 times here in the state of Washington. I did keep count. And you know, and through all of those traffic stops, I've never had one that escalated to even a potential use of force situation.
Right.
Right. And, you know, but it started initially because when I was a kid, and most people don't, you know, most kids don't get their license that early in New York, right? But like I got my license early, and I remember I ran a stop sign. I didn't think I ran it, but I ran it. Cop pulled me over, lit me up. It was like, hey, you ran that stop sign back there. I was like, I'm sorry, sir. I thought I stopped. No, you just can't just tap your brakes and keep going.
Yeah.
I ran that stop sign. I'm like, I'm sorry, sir. And you see your license and registration. I was like, well, I have a permit. And I gave him my permit. And he looks at it. He was like, this is expired. I'm like, oh, man. And he was like, where do you live? And I'm like, I live around the block. He was like, so you're driving without a license and running stop signs in your own neighborhood? I'm like, oh, I'm sorry,
So it sounds
It's
bad.
horrible.
like, yeah,
I'm about to get cooked.
I'm like, I'm going to jail. and he was just like, no, you can't do that. And I'm like, sir, I'm sorry, I didn't realize that. And he looks at me, kind of like stops and looks at me for like 2 seconds, and then walks back to his car. He was like, I'll be right back. Goes back, runs my stuff, comes back and says, he stares at me before he talks. Your parents in the military? I was like, no. No, sir. Why do you ask that? You know, like, well, where did that come from? He was like, because no one around here calls me sir. And I was like, oh, I don't know what to tell you about that, sir. Like, what am I supposed to tell you about that? But he was just like, you know what, I'm going to let you off because you were so respectful.
Yeah.
Now, most of my cousins had been in and out of prison, right? And I got different takes and different experiences about what it is to interact with law enforcement. That changed my mind right off the top because it was like, oh, so if I carry it like this, I have a better chance of you know, walking away,
Yeah.
you know? And I carried it like that every time I've gotten pulled over. But then I got smarter as I got into my career. And when you work, you know, so I was never a patrol officer, right? So I worked task force, and so when you do that, like you work with other cops, so you're literally doing patrol with them. But I wasn't a patrol officer, and so you know I learned from both sides. So when I talk about this, I'm talking from both sides of it. You know, getting pulled over, I understand it's a scary thing, no matter what. Even to this day, you know, when the lights pop on behind me, I'm like, you know, like. For what? You know.
Yeah.
Now, if I'm hauling ass, I'm hauling. I'm right. Like I already know, and so that's not a surprise. But at other points, you know, you get pulled over. One of the first things I do, you know, I'll just say I'll go through at night because there's a couple of other things at night that I would do differently. The moment those lights come on, all right, I'm starting to make moves to pull over. Right. Start signaling. Start making that move to pull over to the right. As that's happening, I'm dropping my windows. If I'm on the phone, I'm hanging up. My music is banging, music turned off, right? Shut it all down and pull over. Once I get over to the side, all right, I'm not fidgeting around. I turn on my dome light, okay? Turn on my dome light. I have a push button start, so I don't have to fish for any keys. But if I had keys, they would come out of the ignition, and I'd put them on the dash, all right? Hands at top of the steering wheel, fingers spread at 10 and 2. And I'm just chilling. I'm not fishing around for anything. I don't know. Maybe one of my lights were out. I have no idea. So I'm just gonna chill until the officer gets there. They notice this. They notice that type of thing right off the top. Now, what did I just do? What type of situation did I just set up? Now that officer is walking up to the car. They can see in the car, because I have tint, I always have tint. They can see directly into the car. That dome light is on, so they can see clearly in there, all right? My hands are at 10 and 2, and the car is off.
You 100% disarmed yourself, 100%.
And they walk up and they see that.
Right.
And they're looking at it like, okay, I own this. And that makes them feel good, right? And so, so they get up and they get to the car, and then it's like, all right, or the other option, and this is personally what I do what you want, but I always put my hands out of the window. I'm starting it right from jump, right? But when I do that, I'm not shoving my hands out the window. I'm slowly, fingers spread, and I like to say, for black folks, white side out, light side out.
Right.
Point it back to them so they can see clearly, and nothing should be in your hand. That's when I usually get the best responses. They usually stop right where they are, and they'll be like, have you been through this before, sir? Like, yes, sir, I have.
We gave it away.
Yeah, right? And they're like, okay, you can put your hands back in the car. When I do, 10 and 2, fingers spread at the top of the steering wheel. And at that point, they'll start saying, now, I usually carry a firearm, right? And so if there's a firearm in the vehicle, I'm going to let them know. Now, this is not a state where you have to tell them that. It is important for you to know what states you have to do that. For instance, in North Carolina, I don't care if you're standing at a Starbucks and a cop comes up and starts talking to you and you're armed, right? You have to tell that officer that you have a CPL or that you're armed, all right? And that's how I would go about it. I wouldn't say, I have a gun. That's a problem. Don't do that.
Alarm.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Just say, officer, I have a CPL, I have a concealed pistol license, all right, or whatever it's called in the state that you live in, or just say that you're armed. I do not move. We talk, because like a lot of people talk about, Philando Castile and what happened with him. I don't move. There's no reason to move for me to tell this officer that I'm armed. So my hands are still at the top of the steering wheel, fingers spread, 10 and 2. Officer, before we go any further, I'd like to let you know that I have a concealed pistol license. Now, a very smart officer is going to be like, there might be a gun in that car. Okay. So you have a gun in the car? Yes, sir, I do. Okay. Well, where is it? I tell them where it is and the condition that it's in. It's on my right side in the holster, and that's it. All right? Okay, don't touch it. Didn't plan to, sir. All right. And so you go to at that point, and they're like, where do you, I need to see your license and registration. I get confirmation before I move. Yeah. Right? Again, I've been on both sides of this. I get confirmation before I move. If they say, and my license is in my right back pocket.
I had a similar situation. I don't want to cut you off. I want to add to that real quick.
What's that?
So that same situation, I had similar situation. Pulled over, same thing. Dude comes to my passenger seat. My window's all the way down. I told him that, and he literally just put his hand on his joint like he was about to pull. So, like, is that a normal response?
No.
From that?
No.
Like, I just felt like my hands was already on they weren't spread, but they were on
Doesn't matter.
The wheel.
Yeah.
And it was sitting right here in the case. I just came from the range.
Oh, he probably didn't see it at that point. He probably didn't see it.
He asked me about it. No, what happened was he asked me about it because we're sitting on my seat.
Got it.
And so I'm sitting here 10 to 2, and windows all the way down. He's looking in the car. And as soon as he asked me about it, I said, yeah, there's a gun in there. And he backed up, and he put his hand on it. He didn't draw, but he did put his hand on it. And I was just like, man, that wasn't necessary. Like, I wasn't. It's also not a threat right here at this particular moment with the gun, with it over there in a case.
Think about what that. But think about this. All right, how did that make you feel at that moment?
It made me feel like, but he was about to draw. That's what I felt like.
So, think about that. That sets a precedent, right? So now he's just like, all right, hand on my gun means he's gonna realize that I know that there's a gun in this car, and I might feel uneasy about that. So this is gonna change your behavior as well, all right? And that's what he did, because you felt some kind of way about that. Like, hey, man, I feel like this dude's about to pull on me. I think that's exactly what he was trying to get to. You know what I mean? It doesn't make it right. I'm just telling you, like, that's how a lot of these cats think. And I don't know about that particular officer, but so when it comes down to, when they tell me to reach for something, I get confirmation before I move. So if they're saying, hey, I need to see your license and registration. Okay, officer, my license is in my wallet in my right back pocket. All right. Okay. Would you like me to get it? Yeah, go ahead and get it. Okay. I'm reaching for it. It doesn't need to be a production, but I'm making sure that they know exactly what's going on. I reach for it, get my wallet out, come out. I'm not moving anything fast. Officer, I have my wallet. Okay, all right, fine, just give it to me. I don't care. I'm going to take as long as I need to make sure I'm going to leave this situation, all right? I need to see your registration. Registration's in the glove box, sir. All right, well, would you like me to get it? Yeah, get it. All right, I'm reaching for it. Confirmation. Yeah. Always get confirmation, right? And again, here's the thing, and the reason why I do this, again, it doesn't need to be a production. You don't know them. Yeah. They don't know you, but you don't know them. And people have this automatic trust. Well, they used to have this automatic trust when it came down to law enforcement officers, right? Well, they're a cop, so they're solid. They're A1 citizen. Nah, man. They're just like anybody else that decided to go get a job, So anyway, so with that being said, after all of that is done, they go back to the car. Oh, I also should mention, do not get out of the car. Unless you are ordered to get out of the car, do not exit your vehicle. That looks threatening to them, right? Like, why would you be getting out of your car? They don't need you to meet them halfway.
It's doing a lot.
Right, yeah, it is. But, there was a brother that just got killed last year. I forget where he's from. He was an immigrant, but he was a black man though. But he got out of his car. I saw that whole deal unfold, and he did everything wrong, unfortunately. But he got out of the car, approached the officer. Officer stopped him. It was definitely an English, ESL, second language type thing. And he is talking, and he's not really understanding him. The subject starts backing away. The officer's telling him not to run, don't move, don't move. He turns around, starts running.
Shoots him in the back?
No, he chased him, tackled him. Now there's grappling. Most cops do not fight well. He's rolling around with him, and he starts to reach for his taser. The guy, tasers are a problem. He reaches for it, gets his taser, but at this point, the officer is able to get like a back mount on him, and the guy still has his taser. He's on his back, but the officer decides to draw, and he pops him. He shoots him in the back of the head, right? Jeez. So everything up until that point, I agree with the officer did, everything. But now, the right with the taser thing is an issue because, again, they don't fight well. Yeah. Out of shape and poorly trained equals fear, right? So when that type of thing happens, and now somebody, the first thing you do, you don't know how to control people. You don't have the cardio. You don't have the skill set, the mindset. And all of a sudden, now it's like, oh, I think I'm going to die, right? They think that every situation that they get into they're about to die, right? And, so now that person has your taser. So now, and the thing about the whole taser thing, because that happened with Rashard Brooks, the brother got killed at the Atlanta Wendy's. Right. I remember Rashard Brooks. Yeah. He got the taser. What people are taught, what law enforcement officers are taught, is if someone gets something like your pepper spray or your taser, and they not only are willing to fight you, number one, they've proven that they're resisting enough to fight you, but now they're going to take your weapons, and they're trying to use them against you. Yeah. What's to stop them from getting your gun and finishing you off? Right. Because it has happened at multiple murders at traffic stops and other situations that have happened. Yeah. Part of their training is not just going through the physical training, it's actually videos that they watch. And they watch their colleagues get murdered all the time at traffic stops. And so these types of things happen, and I kind of got off on that just because I was talking about getting out of the car. It is a bigger issue than you think it is. It's not just, hey, you need to get back in your car. It's like, hey, what are you doing? And why are you doing that? And now you're having to try to put all this stuff together, so.
Do you see, I don't know, you said you was on patrol stops, you wasn't patrolling, but do you see the lack of training? Do you see like their side of it can be causing this, or do you see that, it's all kind of just more stemmed off of the person that's getting pulled over kind of thing?
That's a great question, man. I would say it's whoever escalates it, because my very last traffic stop was in this city, in Tukwila, right? We're in Tukwila. Yeah, it was in Tukwila. It was by far the worst traffic stop I've ever had, and it's the only time I tried to turn an officer in. Only time out of all the traffic stops I had. And he was hyper aggressive, and had it not been me that knew how to handle that situation, my wife was 8 months pregnant at the time, in the car. He ran up on me in the dark. He ran up on me in the dark, all right? And we were at probably close to here. It was dark. I haven't been down here in years. It was raining, so it was extra slick and dark. Some traffic revisions that have happened. I didn't know my way around as well. I guess he thought I cut him off, and I remember him hitting his siren like whoop whoop. I'm like, oh, okay, whatever. I just thought he was like just letting me know like, hey, I'm behind you. He didn't turn on his lights or anything. He jumped out of the car, and he hit my window so hard that it flexed, right? I'm thinking somebody's running up on me. I couldn't see. He had on his dark jumper, and he didn't have the shiny badge. It was his patch, right? And so the first thing I do is I reach.
Yeah.
And then once again, I'm looking, and I'm like, oh, if it wasn't me, somebody probably would have gotten killed. And so I roll down the window, and he screams, "You can't cut me off like that." Like road rage.
Yeah.
You can't cut me off like that. I look at my wife, and I'm like, sorry, officer, I didn't know I cut you off. You can't just turn on your blinker and move over when you want to. Again, officer, I didn't realize I did that. I apologize. Sorry about that. I don't know what else to say. And this is what got it. All right, this is what got me. I can't get into an accident, man. I look at my wife, and I'm like, I don't want you to get into an accident. What people don't know about that is most police departments, if you get into a car accident,
they're 100% at fault.
No
matter what, right?
But you're done.
They are, right?
They're fired.
Yeah, no matter what, right?
They're fired, right? And sometimes it might be 2 accidents, might be 3. That can't be on your record.
Even if it's like not their fault or something like that. I heard something like crazy like that.
Yeah, it's probably more so going to be your fault, because you have to think about what are you doing, right? And on top of that, you're an officer, and there's a certain level of
integrity. Like,
like they, people
decorum.
want, there's that professionalism. Like, oh, you should know how to drive. You're an officer,
yeah,
right?
exactly.
And you're getting pieced in at, driving. That's a problem. And so, so I look at that, and I'm like, but I get it. And so he said it once, and I looked at my wife, and I said, okay, I don't want you to get into an accident either. Again, I apologize. And he said it again, and he was just like, and he looked down, he's like, I can't get into an accident, man. I don't want you to get into an accident either, all right?
Empathize.
And he said, and he was like, and then, so I'm being cool, and I'm keeping my whole disposition is chilled the entire time. And he realizes that he's flipping. He's seeing, us chilling. We're not saying anything. He's the one acting a fool. And he's just like, I just have a good night. Just drive safe. I just can't get. He said it 3 times. I can't get into an accident.
Yeah.
I'm like, all right, man.
So he's a new
drive
cop.
safe. No, I don't know how many years he's been on, but the point is,
it sounds like you weren't worried about the accident.
Yeah. Like that's the last thing he got out of police school.
Maybe.
Yeah.
I mean, that would be a hard guess. But the point is, going back to your question, Who escalates? It depends on who escalates. And a lot of people, like a lot of civilians, a lot of private citizens, we escalate because we don't know
what's going to happen. Exactly.
Yeah, and it's just like, and a lot of times people think that we have rights that we don't actually have. My friends and family will call on me, and they'll be like, "Well, I have the right to." No, you don't. I don't. No.
Yeah.
Well, the cops can't. Yeah, they can.
All right.
Who is telling you this? And that's when I turned on the news because I was like, where are you getting this information? So it depends on who escalates, right? So a lot of these types of situations, it can go both ways. And we've seen it happen. I don't care. You know, I understand, like, people feel a certain way about Eric Garner. I did too. What happened to him should never have happened. It was egregious. It was terrible.
I wanted
all of that.
So, like, I watched that video just again this morning, real quick. And I watched it a little bit last night too.
Yeah.
But I was like, it seemed like it was an accident. It seemed like they killed him by accident. Like, they was using force that was technically necessary. Dude built like Shrek. Anybody?
Whoa. Be nice.
He's huge.
Oh, he was. He didn't have a neck.
Huge.
Yeah.
Okay.
The dude's
part of the
huge.
issue.
He's huge. You know what I'm saying? Like, he's towering over anybody. I think Wood is the only one, like, size-wise, pause. You know what I'm saying? Like, so it's naturally instinctual to be, like, a little bit fearsome of this person. You know what I'm saying? Just seeing him, his stature alone. And then on top of that, he's combative, right? And he's
resistant.
Argumentative, right?
Right.
And I'm not saying that he had a right to be, but they weren't, like, meeting his energy. And it's clear why. There's a huge size disadvantage. To me. That was the first thing I noticed.
Yeah, but, you know, again, that should not be an issue. You know, Wood's a big brother.
Right.
I don't care. That is not something that I mean, he could be a D1 athlete. I'm like, all right, well, this is going to suck for a minute.
Pack a lunch.
Guess what? Here we go.
Yeah.
You know, but when you get into a mindset of fear around it and how you react to that, that's an issue. And so, again, you know, we'll talk about training, but we have to talk about training. Training is a big thing here, but so when you look at Eric Garner, that situation, was he committing a crime? Yes, he was. I don't care that he was only selling cigarettes. It's just, the crime is a crime. I only speak in terms of the law.
Right.
Right? That's it. I don't care about anybody else doing anything. It's about the law. And
what
that's
happens
what I want
when
people
people
to get out.
commit crimes and they get caught? Usually, they try to deflect and they try to say things like, "Oh no, I wasn't doing nothing," which is what.
Oh, it's
he was
not
doing.
that serious.
Yeah. Well, I'm not bothering nobody out here. I'm not bothering nobody out here.
Yeah.
And so
it's still a crime.
Yeah.
At the end of the day.
I know.
And so he's selling cigarettes, whatever.
Lucy's.
Boom. Yeah, he's
Take
doing
it
the
back
little
to
Lucy's. Yep. And so then and then they decide that they're going to arrest him. They have the right to do that. They went to put hands on him. He jerks away. All right.
Now he resisting. Yeah.
That's resisting. It's not being combative.
Right,
he was never combative.
right.
He was resisting. All right. I want to be clear on that.
I would say he was like a little bit combative with his speech. So like he was like, when you talk with your hands, you know, communication is like what, 10% verbal. Look at the way I'm sitting right now. I'm relaxed. I'm not, you know what I mean, coming at you. If I was like, yo, D-Dot, yo, you tripping, you'd be like, I'm only talking 10%, but my body language is saying, yo, I want to get at you. That's what I looked at the video and he's doing that.
It's complex,
he's like,
though.
Yo, chill. Like, I'm not bothering nobody. Like, don't do all that. Like, just like how you said before, can you come at me like, yo, relax, calm, cool, collective? You know what I'm saying?
But as a police officer, as a law enforcement officer, I'd say law enforcement because agents have to deal with this too. The law enforcement officers need to have that, diversity in their disposition to be able to, like, know how to handle, know when to escalate, know when to de-escalate. Sometimes you might get to a situation. I'll go through the use of force model really quick as we're talking about Eric Garner. There's presence, right? So presence is officer sitting on the side of the road. Officer in uniform shows up, right? That's presence. Okay, you see them, you change your demeanor. Whatever you're doing, you might, oh, there's a cop here.
Which everybody should do. Listen, everybody should do that. You get pulled over, like exactly what you said, this should be common knowledge. You get pulled over, any type of police, like drinks involved, I don't care what's going on. It should be changed immediately just because the police are involved.
So
immediately.
So that's the presence, right? And then there's verbal. Okay?
Okay.
So now you're being verbally aggressive. So Eric Garner, in my opinion, was being verbally aggressive. And so now now this person is, I'm not going to do this and I'm not going to do that and I'll do this to you, yada, yada, right? And so they're talking like that. So there's presence and then there's verbal. Now this is where you start to talk about resisting, okay? Okay, there's two types of resistance. There's aggressive and aggressive. Aggressive is someone going at you. I'm punching, I'm kicking, I'm fighting, that type of thing. Aggressive is when someone is is pulling away. They're trying to egress. They're trying to get away. They're running. They're like Eric Garner was being aggressive when it comes down to resistance. They went to put hands on him and he pulls away. And then there's static resistance, right? You know, when people like children, for instance, they drop their weight.
Yeah.
And they're like, I ain't going anywhere.
Yeah.
And like, you got to drag them,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
So there's static, aggressive, aggressive. Then we go to, assaultive. So assaultive, now we're fighting, we're scrapping. Now I can start using pepper spray, taser, baton, and that's going to be different depending on the agency. Pepper spray, taser, baton, etc. And then you get to the last, which is deadly force, right? So there's 5 levels, okay? Eric Garner got to that point of becoming aggressive and was verbally aggressive. They still handled it just fine. I'm not a big fan of the dog pile. I've seen people get hurt. I've seen somebody actually get their leg, know someone that got their leg broken in a dog pile.
Yeah.
It doesn't work. It's not usually good. But as I watched that video for the first time, right, I didn't know he died. Someone sent it to me, and I'm watching it, and I swear I said, as I looked at it, they're going to kill that guy.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, got you.
If you look at it, and if you understand, and we can talk about chokeholds, I do not think chokeholds should have been banned. I know it's not a popular thing to say, but I have a reason for that. They did not know what they were doing with the chokehold, right? When you look at it, the cop's forearm, first of all, Eric Garner barely had a neck, right?
Yeah.
He had a massive neck. That guy's arm, his forearm, was pressing against his trach.
Yep.
Your forearm is supposed to be in line with your throat.
Right.
All right? It was here.
Yeah.
He's screaming, I can't breathe.
Legit.
And now you're on his back. He's a big man. You're on his back. You're putting more pressure. And all of that now is his chest going into the ground, which is not going anywhere. All right? And now you got all these people piling on top of him, and this brother's screaming, I can't breathe. One thing about the chokehold, we can talk about it more in depth, but the thing about the chokehold, though, is it was banned in New York City at the time. Just because you ban something doesn't mean it's not going to happen.
Right.
All right? Which is part of my issue with that situation in Eric Garner, because I don't believe the chokehold should have been banned. It's something that should have been trained better. All right? It is one of the, so your choices, if you decide that you want to fight police, your choices is get pepper sprayed, which is devil juice. I hate pepper spray. I'd much rather get tased than pepper spray.
Yes.
Never
That
did.
shit burns.
That had experience.
Burns your skin.
So it's actually, so pepper spray is actually olarecin capsicum. It's called OC, olarecin capsicum. That is the resin from hot peppers. You ever touched a pepper
Yes.
and then touch something?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like that times 1,000.
Nothing.
And it lasts for a couple of days. I got hit. I didn't get hit. The guy next to me got hit, and I got some on my forehead.
That's so.
Like
I've only
2-3 days, man.
I've only
That
been
shit
pepper
was
sprayed
burned.
twice. I've been
Yeah.
pepper sprayed twice in training.
I was say you have to get pepper spray before you do it, right?
Yeah.
All right,
And
cool.
taste too, right?
And taste.
And taste.
So
That shit's no joke.
Yeah, but the
You can't take a shower, none of that, man. That shit hurts.
Well, no, you gotta make
Tomato
sure,
paste.
No,
You
got to, but that shit
You
hurts.
gotta keep your drawers on in the shower because it all runs down.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. Women too. It's all gonna just goes right down. So you gotta keep your drawers on.
Message.
And how you clean up from that. So how you
Milk
clean
bath, right?
up?
Tomato paste.
No. You use Johnson's baby shampoo. Oh. Right. So that way you can rub it, literally
your
rub it
eye,
into your
yeah.
eyes. Right. And so yeah. So I mean that type of thing. It does. So anyway, I was getting to pepper spray. So you get pepper spray. You can get tased. You can get beat with a baton.
Ooh.
They can thump on you, sit there and just beat on you with their hands and fists. You can get shot, or I can go ahead and put you in a chokehold if you want to keep fighting me.
Yeah.
I'll put you in a chokehold. You're going to take a brief nap. By the time you wake up, you're going to be cuffed in the back of the car.
Yeah.
You're going to take a real short nap. You're going to be on your way to jail. You good.
Yeah.
You're going to be fine. All right? The problem with the chokehold is they don't train it enough, number one. All right? It might have only been trained 2 to 4 hours a year. Okay? And that's not enough to do anything. You know, so 2 to 4 hours a year of training, and then you turn around and you think you're going to do something with some type of proficiency.
Right.
No. And
But
then,
not only that, just do it with somebody who's trying to resist it. You know what I'm saying? Like it's not
somebody's
just,
always going to be trying to resist it.
But I'm saying, like, in the heat of the moment, you got adrenaline going.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You don't know what they fighting for, whatever. You know what I mean?
How often do they even require training?
Great question. Thank you. So training, it depends on the type of training you talk about. So, for instance, the least amount of training, at least this is what it was, excuse me, before 2020, and now people start talking about it differently, but de-escalation. De-escalation training is something that should be done far more than what it's done.
Right.
It might be done 2 hours a year.
Yeah.
It might have been at one point. Now it's happening more. It might be like 10 hours a year. I still think there's something that they should do more. But it's a thing that you do more. Most of is talk to people.
Right.
You talk to people more than anything else. Right? And you should know how to deal with that. You should know how to deal with the disabled community. You should know how to deal with autistic and people with autism and Tourette's and intellectual and physical disabilities and people that have seizures or whatever. There's been things that have happened. That's a whole different story. But things that have happened to people that have suffered with disabilities and cops that didn't know how to recognize it. All right, if a woman's sitting here having a seizure, and you're commanding her to get out of her car, and you decide to smash her window. Yeah. Instead of helping her because you can't recognize that. Right. And part of that is like these heavy PowerPoint trainings, right, where you're not actually involved in interacting with the people of that population. You're just looking at a PowerPoint like, oh, yeah, that's what it is for Tourette's. Sure. All right. Yeah. That's what I got to remember. No, you got to go spend time with those folks,
I find that very interesting because I work at Faircrest. So I work for DSHS cutting hair there.
Okay.
It's a place for people with mental and behavioral health issues where they live there. And it's interesting that it's run by the state, but they don't have people from law enforcement come and interact with them so they can at least get to see what behavior looks like,
Well, that's what the Barber Game podcast for.
No, I'm just saying it.
That happen
that's dope right there.
It's very interesting to me because I have to do classes every 2 years where they teach us how to de-escalate a situation with a client if we see them when they have a bad behavior. Will I know today how to take them down? No.
That's not your job.
No, but it's training. Mm-hmm. They train us. I'm not a caregiver, so I won't ever be in that position. But even those classes to me have never... I'm like, I'll go through the motions of it, but will I remember? Probably not. Because we're taught to, de-escalating without hurting them.
Of course.
Because we can't hurt them.
Right.
So they said, what would you do if someone comes from behind and chokeholds you? I'm like, headbutt backwards? I don't know. But no, that wasn't the case. Like, there's certain moves that you have to do, and then it's just interesting. It's just interesting how they haven't made a connection. And
they're doing better at it as far as the disability stuff goes. But first of all, like your interaction alone, right there. Yeah. I would say the fact that you're interacting with them is going to be different than like with law enforcement. Right. But like I said, these PowerPoint heavy type of trainings, it's the worst thing. Some of the best things that they do in law enforcement as far as training though is reality-based training. Right. I'm a certified reality-based trainer. I'm also an active shooter response instructor. So I've trained a lot of police agencies around here on how to run into malls, schools, situations in the worst type of scenario possible. Right, when someone is just indiscriminately shooting people, and so that type of training, that reality-based training, is some of the best stuff. I don't care how long you've been on the job. I don't care how many situations you've been in and uses of force that you've had. Nobody cares about that. Yeah. There's still certain things you haven't seen, and I guarantee you there's certain things that you might have experienced that you haven't experienced in a long time. And so it's important for you to train that. And if you don't, now you're setting yourself up to be like, you freeze in that moment, And so I think, when we talk reform, I'd like to see training change into maybe 15% of their training per week. 15 to 20% of their time should be training.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it just makes sense. Like, don't forget.
Per year.
You get, no, I'm talking about weekly.
A day, pretty much a day a week, 1 day per week.
Things change so much.
Yeah, all the time. And so, like, you have to be able to, like, continue to train. And look, like, you're out there in the world. You're out there in the public. You interact with everyone. You are, the chance for something to pop off is always, you never know. You might be doing a welfare check, meaning that you might have been told that, hey, we haven't heard from this person for a couple of days. Go knock on their door, and you go knock on their door, and next thing you know, you're in the middle of a domestic violence type of situation, which is one of the, but DVs are some of the worst situations to get into because you're already going at your partner or family member or lover or whoever, and it's
your mentality is probably like, fuck it, you know what I mean, at that point, right?
Well, as far as who, the officer?
No, the guy that's arguing, they're caring less about what else is, they have to lose.
They're annoyed that they're being disturbed.
Right.
And on top of that, so now you're interfering with their personal life,
Exactly.
right? And then like the normal thing is, it's like, hey, I'm gonna, if it's, you and, your partner out, we have to separate you, right? Then we're gonna talk to you and get your story, get her story, and see what it actually is.
Yeah.
Right.
And I'm mad because you in my business now.
Now you in your business, and it's like, now I'm in your house, tracking garbage all across your floor, right? You got to deal with that.
Yeah.
And so it's that type of thing. So yeah, DVs are really tough situations. But overall, like I said, when it comes down to training, though, training is something that the reality-based training needs to happen more. Needs to happen a lot more. Training needs to happen in general as far as de-escalation training. Some of the training that they do the most is the combative training, right? You do 150, 160 hours a year of shooting and fighting. What do you think you're going to do?
Right.
You get into a situation.
That's all we know.
How you gonna react?
Yeah.
Right. And then if it's taser, right? That's all you. That's the command when they get ready to shoot the taser, and that's all you do. And you're not doing enough grappling. I'll tell you. Is it Linwood? Linwood PD. Yeah, Linwood PD here in the state of Washington is the first agency in the state of Washington to mandate Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu training.
That's what I was going to ask. Do they have martial arts?
And I am ecstatic. I was like, good for you, because the only one nationally that did a study is the Marietta Police Department in Georgia. Which is in Gracie University. That's where I trained Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, is Gracie Baja. And so they actually went through Gracie University, and they saw the decrease in taser deployments. They saw the decrease in injuries and all of that just by knowing how to deal with people. And it's not just about putting people in chokeholds and arm bars. It's not about that. What it is you getting that person into a position, because most people don't know how to grapple, right? And so you start moving around someone, most people don't know, you're going to defeat it so quickly. And then you get into a point, not where you're sitting there talking garbage, you're like, all right, calm down, man. Calm down, just relax.
Yeah.
And you might still be like, man, get the F off me. All right, look, I can't do that yet. But you can talk at that point.
Right, calm them down.
The more skill you have, right? And that's what happened when I started grappling. I started grappling in 2004, and it changed because I had only boxed before then. It changed everything for me. And then every time they were going to serve a warrant, hey, Dotson, can you come? Right? It was that type of thing. But it was, my demeanor, I noticed my distance changed. Where
I can be real close to you now.
I can be close to you.
Yeah.
That's a great observation. I'm glad you noticed that, because I would be back here before,
yelling.
and then if you're
grabbing
or like hold
this,
like they're actually putting hand on the gun or got taser in the hand, and I'm just sitting here talking to you, right? And I can be like, and I can walk up to you and talk to you, right? Because I know the moment I decide, right, and I can go from talking to putting you on your face, right? And so I can go that quickly. If I decide to put you down, it's just going to go like that. But I'm not feeling personal about it either.
Right.
I'm not escalating.
I'm not making you feel threatened where you got to feel like you got to do something or whoever, right?
Exactly. And so, I mean, the whole, it helps so much just for the simple fact that now you have this additional skill set. And yeah, if you're a marksman, you don't have to be a marksman this close.
Every time.
Right? Like, most of the shooting deaths that happen, I think the FBI statistic is, you might have to look it up, I'm usually good about this, is around 12 feet. Is around one of some of the most fatal shootings that happen is within 12 feet, right? Which isn't very far. And you don't have to use your sights at that point. It's just body index, right?
Right.
So it doesn't take much. So it's something that, again, it changes the whole dynamic and how you do that, right? Now, your firearms type things are going to change at that distance, but for the most part, that training is so essential that I'm really hoping and praying that they do that. But I'm pushing for that. When I talk to like Washington state officials, when I start talking to state representatives and senators and congresspersons, it's like, yo, we need to do this jujitsu. And the thing is like, look, if you don't believe me, come put on a pair of shorts. Let's roll around for a second. I'm not going to hurt you, but you'll see how quickly that stuff works and how much of a benefit it'll be to officers and the public. And especially when we start talking about people that are disabled interacting with law enforcement, they might not be in that frame of mind, right? It's not, the thing is that most cops think when people are resisting and they have awkward behavior, they're high or drunk.
Right.
They don't think about intellectual disability.
And then you add nonverbal to it.
And then they're cursing at if you have Tourette's or something like that. And
I'm saying with that. Sometimes people are nonverbal. They don't.
Nonverbal.
They can't speak.
Right.
So they take it as you're ignoring what I'm saying.
Or you're not responding to me.
You're not responding to me, yeah.
And what happens when you don't respond to a police officer?
Right.
They escalate.
Exactly.
Right? It becomes that type of thing. And so when it comes down to, handling people, that's why it's so important. Even for the disabled community, you don't want to have to thump on them. You don't want to tase them. That's even more traumatic.
Right.
There's even more things that you have to deal
with.
And so I think the way I'm all about fighting, I'm cool. I'm all about shooting when that stuff is necessary, when it's necessary. But for the most part, it's just not necessary, right? If you know how to deal with it. Now, we talked about that use of force model, all right? I'm a use of force specialist. I love talking about use of force. The whole thing about use of force is people always think that, like, cops have to de-escalate. You might not be in a place to be de-escalated.
Yeah.
All right? I can't de-escalate you if you are unwilling to listen to me. And so, but you hear this, well, they need to de-escalate. There's no magic words.
Right.
I don't do hypnosis, all right? There's none of that I can do. You have to be willing. But it might be a verbal situation when we show up. I don't have to go through those steps. It doesn't have to be verbal presence, verbal, assaultive, assaultive to, that type of thing. It might go from we're talking to next thing you know, we're fighting for our lives, right? It goes that quick because what happened with Rashard Brooks in Atlanta? They put one cuff on that brother's hand. Had he put his other hand behind his back, he'd be alive today.
Yeah.
He decided, when we talk about escalation, he decided to fight, right? And next thing you know, boom, they were on the ground.
Wasn't he asleep, drunk in his car?
He was asleep, drunk in his car when they first contacted him.
Yeah.
They went through their sobriety test for about 30 minutes or so, approximately, and then decided that, okay, we have enough here.
Yeah.
You're going to jail.
Yeah.
And it was COVID, all right? He would have got booked and released.
Right.
And he decided to scrap. And there was nothing about his skill set. Let me tell you, there was nothing about what he did that made me think that he knew what he was doing. So one of the things that really frustrated me after the thing that happened with Rashard Brooks in Atlanta was I was watching CNN, and I was watching Don Lemon on there, and there was this law enforcement specialist that was on there. They have these little talking heads, that come on there to give their opinion, and sometimes it's great, but a lot of times they leave out a lot of critical information, things that I would have said, that I know should have been said, and they don't say.
Right.
And the guy explained why the officers shot Rashard Brooks, and he said it the exact way I would have said it. And he said, officers are trained, like I said, if someone takes a weapon, they fight, and they try to use it against you, they incapacitate you, who's to say they wouldn't take your firearm and finish you off? And Don Lemon's response to that was, yeah, they might try to spin it like that. And the guy went to respond, he was just like, all right, well, thanks, and we're going to go to commercial. Yeah. And I was like, whoa.
Dang.
I'm like, that's the manipulation. I was really disappointed. And actually, and I have nothing personal against the man, but I was disappointed enough that I stopped watching him at that point.
Yeah.
Because I was like, that was great information for the American public. You got people out here in the street protesting about this, and he's telling you, hey, if you do this, you're going to end up getting killed. That should have been like, oh, that's good information. Well, why is that? That's right, that's wrong, right. Or I don't believe that should happen. You don't cut the man off and say, yeah, they'll try to spin it like that.
Then, you discredit the whole thing he just said, like it was fake information.
Dang. Thank you. That's what I'm trying to get. And that's the whole point of the Black Sanctuary, folks, is to educate people with this type of thing. And there's not any group that I've spoke to. I've had to come back to do Q&As for different companies. Like, we'll have 30 minutes, and they'll be like, you need to come back for another 2 hours.
Yeah.
I'm like, cool. Because that's the information that people get and they don't know. So I'm really hoping that this is critical for your audience.
And it will be.
How do you feel like? Because I've always wondered, how come there are no more veterans in law enforcement, like police officers?
Military veterans?
Yeah.
There's a few different reasons for that. But one of the ones that I do know, as far as why there might not be, you have to think about let's just think about rules of engagement. Military, everyone is downrange.
Right.
Right? So let me explain this. Everyone is downrange, meaning if you're not here, you're over there, you're a bad guy.
Right.
They use the word enemy.
Right.
You're not an enemy in law enforcement. Nobody's an enemy. You're a citizen, all right? Or a civilian, or you're a subject, right? You're not an enemy, okay? There's hostile.
Yeah, hostile. Yeah.
You're a hostile.
Yeah.
Okay. It's that type of thing. Rules of engagement might be different, and it might be open fire.
Right.
Right. You're not going to see that in a suburban or urban place where you're just going to see police officers letting off. Now, it does happen. That's what happened to Jalen Walker in Ohio. Akron, Ohio, got shot 60 times. 60 times and 90 rounds. 90 rounds, 60 times with just 30 bullets unaccounted for.
Right.
Yeah.
Right? Again, that's the issue I have with law enforcement and the proficiency. And so for me, training with those folks, like military, special operators, which was, I admit that was something that most people won't have that opportunity to do. All right, I get that. But at the same time, taking that opportunity to be proficient, because the reason why I sought out that training, sidebar, the reason why I sought out that training to do more of is because I came in second in my firearms academy.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, man.
And I still remember the guy who beat me. I remember the score.
Coming from him.
And I was hot. But in my mind, what that told me is you have room for improvement.
Yeah.
In my mind, I should always be number one, right?
Yeah.
And so I was like, cool. And then I was. But the point is like, that's that's the level of proficiency that you should get. But, but military, they train at a different level. They train more often, all of that. But I think a lot of the reasons why that I've heard, specifically, about recruiters and other upper admin and police departments is because sometimes they're a little bit more aggressive.
Right.
Especially if they've actually, been on the front lines.
Yeah.
Of course,
Yeah.
definitely.
Right, and they've been deployed a couple of times. They've been in, the sandbox, and they've seen certain things and experienced certain things that they want to bring.
Qualified
Confirmed kills, things like that. It changes.
I know, but what I'm saying is qualified ones that can pass the psych test.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Like,
I'm not saying they can't.
Right,
I'm not
but
saying
because
that.
there are some police officers that listen, me doing hair, there's more requirement of me doing hair than some police officers.
You get 1,000 hours
Some
in
states,
Washington,
yeah.
right?
Some states, yeah.
1,800 for cosmetology.
This is messed
You know what it
everything,
is?
by the
You
way.
know what it is in Washington State?
Like 7-something.
720
Yeah,
hours.
I knew it was 7-something.
Louisiana, last time I checked, was 300 hours.
Insane.
And I don't know how California is, but cosmetology for California is, I think, 2,400 hours.
Oh, yeah.
For cosmetology.
Mind you, though, side note, there's like a lot of prerequisites that you can't, like, if you smoke. Somebody was telling me, like, if you smoke weed a certain amount of times, you can't be. If you
That used to be.
do this. Oh, okay.
That
So
used
not
to be.
anymore.
Not with weed anyway.
So
yeah. I was nervous because I applied for DEA and they said if you had any, I think it was something like if you had basically, smoked marijuana within like the last 10 years. And I was like, dang. And here's the thing. I was such a health nut in high school that I didn't touch weed until my senior year in college.
Okay.
And I jacked myself at that point. I was like, man, I messed up. And but now with it being legalized, now with so many younger folks, testing and trying it out, edibles and all of that stuff, it's something that they have been like, were you a recreational user or habitual? Right.
Yeah.
And then when we talk about that, they might specify how many times.
Yeah.
And so, and like when we talk about qualifications, like that's the thing about like law enforcement that, again, I think people think more, they think highly of as opposed to what it actually really is. But polygraphs suck.
Yeah, I was gonna say you have to take one, and if you tell them, I've heard. I know somebody wanted to be cop.
We had a client that wanted to be a cop, and he could not pass a polygraph test, and it wasn't because he was lying or anything. He, through the polygraph test, found out that he had like heart problems, and he ended up having to go to a doctor's office, a cardiologist actually, and then he had some legit heart problems, and I guess it set off the polygraph test.
Oh, I was like, how does this relate to the polygraph?
Yeah, because it's, I guess he couldn't even answer the questions they asked him, like simple questions like his name or something. His heart rate was.
Shoot, I should have used that excuse.
Yeah, man, I got a heart murmur.
I failed a polygraph before. I failed one before, and it was messed up because it was something that happened when I was younger that I actually don't remember. But I was way too honest.
Yeah.
Way too honest. But yeah, polygraphs are definitely something that happen in municipal law enforcement, some state agencies, most federal agencies. You're going to deal with. And, it's uncomfortable, but, it's a really interesting process. It's not admissible in court,
right?
Because of the scientific nature of it. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Some people know how to beat it, that type of thing. Some people might try to take a Valium before, so you might have to take a urinalysis test. It might test your urine beforehand to make sure that you're not doing anything to try to calm yourself down, right? But it makes sense because, it's interesting. Like for your listeners, I'm sitting in a chair right now. Imagine you sitting in a chair, and that camera that Merv has is sitting right in your face. Mm-hmm. That's facial recognition, right? They're looking for micro expressions, right? They're seeing, do you twitch? Not even like that big, but just a little when your nostrils flare, that type of thing, right? You're sitting on a pad, so do you clench your butt? Do you move? Mm-hmm. Your feet are, you have your shoes off, your feet are on a pad, all right? Your hand is on a pad. Mm-hmm. Then they're testing your heart rate. They have a pulse on your finger. I think, there was one on your finger. And then they have bands going around your chest. You're locked in.
Yeah, there's no...
you ain't beating that.
Ain't no shaking it.
So my thing is just like, ask me what you want. I'm going to get this job or I'm not. You know what I mean? Right. It's that type of thing. But those are some of the things that I would say are really important. Last thing I would say about, the use of force stuff, I want people to understand that, and I spend a lot of time talking about that. So I have a video series that's coming out. I haven't put a name on it yet, but it's going to be under the Black Sanctuary. It's going to be under the Black Sanctuary's channel on YouTube, and it's professionally produced. It looks good. I would love to be able to show you guys at least one before we leave to get your opinion. Nobody else has seen it. Yeah. But I've actually showed a couple of people, but not like the finished product. And one of the things I'm going to do is go through all of the high-profile police shootings, even the ones that people don't know about, and go through those things and break it down So you understand what happened because there's so many variety of things. This person ran, this person fought, this person resisted, this person was doing something suspicious, this person decided to argue with the police officer, this person took their weapon, this person tried to use it against, all these different things, and I can show you, hey, this is what happened, this is why it happened, and not just based on my opinion, but I'm going to list the police policy, right? And most use of force policies for police agencies, Google it. You can Google Tukwila Police Department's use of force policy. You know, it's going to be right there. But most people don't know that. And if you read it, you're like, oh, well, that's messed up. That's the thing you need to fight to change. Right? And so, like, you know, if there's anything, let me say this, if there's anything I said that you don't like, this is not about me, unless it was something opinionated. But when it comes down to the law, I do not speak about my opinion. I'll tell you it's my opinion, but unless I tell you it's my opinion, but most things I talk about are going to be objective because you get enough opinion every place else, right? Like that's the whole, again, one of the foundations of the Black Sanctuary is to make sure that you understand, that what I'm talking about is what it is. It's not my idea. It's not my opinion. This is what it is. This is what's written. And if you actually looked it up, that's what you would find.
Right.
Yeah, that's dope. That's really dope. It's like the detail. Remember, you ever see the detail that Kobe used to do, breaking down players? And you take, like, it's pretty much a play-by-play. Yeah. That's what you're doing.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And it's not biased, so I guess, yeah, man, that's dope. That's super dope.
That's good. I'm glad to hear that because I haven't really shared that with anybody yet. So.
It's all good. No, it's fire. Glock versus HK versus Sig. I know you have your reasons because some
are
big
those?
person. So Glock, everybody know what a Glock is. It's probably number one for concealed.
Can we put CZ in there too? Cause
I would not put it.
I would never.
You never would use it?
I would never. No.
The only reason why I would not, so what Mikhail just listed were different manufacturers for firearms. So Glock, you said HK, Sig.
Heckler Koch, German company.
Yeah, Heckler
Shout
Koch.
out.
And
Heckler Koch, German company.
Great
Shout out
German,
to you.
Fine engineering.
They make great guns.
Well, that's Glocks.
That's Navy SEAL issue, right? Sidearm issue, right?
No, they
or no.
I'm trying to remember. I think I know they switched
to Sig.
I think they switched to Sig. From what I understand, I remember they ran with Glock, and then they went to Sig. But Secret Service has been known to run with SIGs for a long time. They also have submachine guns, stuff like that. So, but the main thing to remember is you want, when we talk about picking a gun, it's you want something that's going to be fast, that you can draw, and that you can get on the target, and it's going to be reliable.
Yeah.
So something that's speedy and has a lot of reliability to it, right? So for me, out of those, I've shot all of those. I own all of them. No, I don't own an HK. My HK was my first duty weapon, and I would say Glock 19, third generation.
Okay, third gen.
New York, right?
Yeah.
So Air Force Ones or Timberlands? What are we choosing?
For me, Timbs. Yeah.
Timbs?
Yeah.
Timbs all day?
Yeah. I rock, and I didn't really start rocking sneakers until later.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wore Timberlands most of my life. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm gonna take your hip hop. Big Pun or Fat Joe, man? You from the BX? Pun all day. And yeah, I mean that's pretty self-explanatory. Recipes to Pun.
Rakim, KRS-One.
Yeah, man. That's a tough one. You can say both.
No.
We'll give you a pass on
No,
that.
Rakim is the god, but I would say, KRS, that's the teacher. That's a hard one.
You gotta choose one.
Oh man. Only because I've been rocking Sound of the Police for the last 2 years, I'll go with KRS.
There we go. Chose up.
BX, baby.
Power 101 or Hot 97?
97.
97?
Yeah.
So does that have anything to do with the fact that you left? Because, Power 105 took over, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
105 is better.
But it was just at the time,
Yeah,
right? And especially when I was in school, the satellite, stuff started popping off and you were able to still listen. And I remember access to 97 more than anything.
I gotta ask you. We're gonna take it back to New York, Seattle. So, Chinese food from New York or teriyaki from here? Because I feel like they both hold high value in Asian cuisine.
As I've gotten older, when I think about it, I would say, teriyaki only because it's not as heavy with the sodium
oil.
back there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, cause like I can taste it now. Like, I'm like, ooh. like, what's up with my heart?
But the duck sauce, you don't miss it? I miss it.
No, it was. It's still good, but I mean, it's just like now. It's like I can actually taste the sodium in it, like the salt. I'm like, ooh. Yeah. It's not as heavy with the teriyaki.
Is the personal detail versus law enforcement?
Like, what did I enjoy more, or?
Yeah, I guess you could say that. Which one?
I would have to go with law enforcement, only because it was the diversity of that experience and being able to do so much and learn so much and then have the ability to do the things that I'm doing now, and it applies in so many ways. But the executive protection was cool just because it's like, I never pushed anything less than a Benz. You got the G5 planes and
that's fire.
Mega yachts and massive properties.
You saw the world.
Yeah, and you see the. Well, I mean, I didn't do a whole lot of traveling. Like there's guys that do the worldwide traveling all the time, but I was usually stuck with a family. Yeah. And but it's cool just because that billionaire lifestyle.
Do you get to have fun while you're doing this job? While you on this? Or are you just attentive? Like I'm making sure everything.
Well, I mean, we don't talk until we're spoken to, type thing. You're there, but you're not there.
Do you have lunch breaks, dinner?
Yeah, of course. But you're not really like. But you're, like if it's like, hey, I'm gonna go eat, and you're like, like you're shoving it down
real quick,
because then you got to be back on.
What's the work schedule like? You work 7 days a week? You with them all the time?
Yeah, I was. Was that 7 days? I forget the last time. It was a while ago now. I think I did. Yeah, it might have been. Sometimes
you just live with them pretty much.
Well, you have shifts, right? And then you have, because during the day, you're moving when they move. If they're going into quote unquote work and or whatever it might be, but you're moving around with them. Then you have the folks that travel all the time, and then one of the things you have to do a lot of is the advance work, which I loved, just because I'm detailed like that, and I enjoyed being able to go out to a spot. So like for instance, Secret Service does a detail. Right. If whoever President Biden gets ready to come out here, they're going to come out here way before. If they're going to come to the Chop It Up Barbershop in Tequila, they're going to come here, they're going to run all of you, they're going to know your entire background, they're going to know your family, they're going to be in your bank account, they're going to be in everything, right? And it's going to be like, hey, what is the influence here? What do we have to worry about? Da-da-da-da. They're going to know the ins and outs. They're going to be standing by the dumpster, over there to know who's coming and going. They're going to know the schedules of the other stores around here.
Right.
Like that advance work is awesome just because it gives you a level of detail. So now when you move around and you go places, especially when I travel, it's like I think like that. It's just like, all right, boom, I'm doing the research ahead of time. I'm like, all right, where's the local hospital? It's like, where's this, where's that? We go certain places, ins and outs, that type of thing, right? And you start building, and the other thing is building relationships. That's the cool thing about doing that, is because your job is easier when you build relationships with people. So you're going, your client wants to go to a restaurant, and that client might even not even say that they want to, but they like Italian. And there's a really good Italian restaurant in that city. Yeah. You're going to go ahead and do that advance work anyway because they like Italian. Right. And it's a known Italian restaurant. So you're going to go there. You're going to meet the general manager. And you're going to say, hey, I can't tell you who's coming in, but it is who it is. Yeah. And look, so when I call you, it's on. And you need to do exactly what we're asking you to do. Right. Because we want them to have a good experience and it's going to look good for you. Yeah. Oh, okay, cool. You know. The only time that didn't work for me is I had a client that needed to, they came out here to meet another world leader, and because that world leader was here, they have a different detail than the billionaire, right? So they shut down traffic for the world leader when they're moving around, when they're going down I-5.
Yeah.
But my client was like, I need to get down to Boeing Field to, jump on my plane.
Yeah.
So I'm like, let me get him a helicopter.
Yeah.
Right? And it's like, cool. Well, shoot, can't fly to Bellevue. Bellevue only does 2-prop engine planes.
Yeah.
Right? And, they, only ones that are around here are single prop.
Right.
And so it's like, all right, cool, can't do that. So I knew that there was a helipad over on the east side, and I rolled up there, and I thought about it too, because I was like, man, I'm a black dude running up on this house. And so I grabbed this other white dude, this other dude on the team, and I was like, yo, man, come with me. And and we went up to the door, and I'm like, yo, in so many words, I'm like, hey, we have, our client, is well-known, very affluent, he's a billionaire, needs to get out of here. They have a helicopter here. If you don't mind, we'd like to use your landing pad. And they were like, who is it? I'm like, I'm sorry, I can't tell you right now. I was like, he'll be here, as soon as you give us the go. And he's like, nah. And I'm like, and it's like, if you saw this dude's house, like I couldn't hit him off any paper. It's just like, it's just like, nah. I'm like, all right, man. That's the only time it didn't really work.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Can you give us like a top 3 of the most crazy people you just met with, I guess, or been around, or? I know you're not in it now, so it might be talk about it a little bit.
No, I mean, still, it's just for integrity purposes.
Yeah.
You can't drop names.
Can't drop names.
Sorry.
Yeah, but it's some of the flex moves that I saw them pull that were the coolest things that I'll never forget. Just because a city told them they couldn't do something, and they're like, okay, I got paper. I'm gonna do it like this.
Yeah.
If that's the law, but I can do it like this,
then
I'm gonna do it that way. And they're like, we can't do nothing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's just dope to watch that.
Yeah.
So it's a different life.
One last thing on the arms. Knife training, because a lot of people don't be knowing you be knowing knife training or gun training. Because I know gun training, and I think a lot of people take gun training, but I know we've talked about knife, and you was telling me, it's like, man, I'm surgical with this shit, Jake.
Yeah, here's the thing about,
Do you mean like kitchen knives?
Nah.
No.
Nah.
It'll work in a pinch.
Definitely
work in a pinch. But if I'm comparing the two, firearms training is great. I look at, but you have to think about the strategy between the two.
Mm-hmm.
Firearms are long distance hole punchers.
Right.
Like I can be, and that's the stupid thing about movies, right? You always see the guy that's running up on you and he's like standing right here. I'm like, you don't have to do that. You can stand over there and get the same thing done.
Yeah.
But the thing about, a knife is close, right? But what's more easily concealable and what can you take more places?
Right.
Right.
Yeah,
you can take a knife far more places, and you can get a hold of a knife far quicker than you will be able to get a hold of a firearm. Right. There's some states that I can't carry in. Right, so there's that, but I will never. You probably will never see me without a knife.
Right.
Yeah. So like there's always, I think that's the thing. So and always training, no matter what it is, whatever your choice of personal defense weapon, it is, you must train with it. Firearms, make sure that you understand gun handling. Gun safety, understand the 4 firearms rules. It should be burned in your brain, and you should operate like that. Knives, same thing, just a little bit different with that. But if I'm gonna have to pick one, believe it or not, I will go with knives, only because I can take them more places. And unfortunately, like I said, it's a strategic thing. It's a tactical thing. You have to change your tactics, quickly. If I'm about 25 feet from that door. If I know I'm gonna have trouble coming through that door, and I have a firearm, I'm probably gonna be posted around that corner if I can. All right. But if I have a knife, where am I going to be?
Right.
I'm going to be
right behind the door.
Right there on the door.
Right there. Because I'll probably have you doing a distraction, something over here, and time their eyes over that way they come through the door. Then it's a tactical thing. So you have to think about what you have, and it's going to judge what you do.
Right.
Right.
So, but unfortunately, it's you have to be close with that, but you can get it more places and do more things with it.
Yeah, that's fire.
So, real quick about Miranda rights. This is just something I want people to know, regards to your rights. A lot of people think that they have to speak every time that they come into contact with law enforcement. Your Miranda rights, that's, case law are cases that were previously established, right? So there's a lot of case law out there. If you want to learn more about Miranda, look up Miranda versus Arizona. That's where it really started. Due to time, I won't get into that. But your Miranda rights, everybody's heard it before.
Yep.
You've heard it on television. You've heard some version of it, right?
Yep.
And I'll do it really quick. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. You have the right to an attorney. If you cannot afford an attorney, one will be appointed to represent you before any questioning. Right? Now, at any time, you can choose to exercise these rights and not answer any questions or make any statements. Do you wish to talk to me at this time? Do you still want to talk to me knowing this, basically,
Yeah.
right? There's going to be different versions depending where you are, depending on the municipality or state that you're in. It might be slightly different, okay? And you hear it differently on your favorite movies
On
all
the
the time.
shows, yeah, you always hear.
But let me break it down the way I think it should be read.
Mm-hmm.
You have the right to remain silent because anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law.
Mm-hmm.
Not going to help you. It could only be used against you in a court of law. Now, you have the right to an attorney. And I want to emphasize that so much that even if you can't afford one, we're going to hook you up. All right? Now, you can choose at any time, even right now, to exercise these rights and not answer any questions or make any statements. Now, with all that said, do you really want to talk to me?
Yeah, no.
That's how it should be read. You see that? You see that?
Facts.
That's how it should be read. Because what happens is people really think that they have to talk. Why? Because you get an investigator. I'm going to sit here and investigate Mikal, and I'm going to be like, hey, Mikal, look, man, that was some crazy stuff that you were involved in, and but look, nobody else is here right now. It's just me and you. I'm not recording this, not even taking any notes, okay?
All right.
Look, just talk to me. The more you talk to me, the more I can possibly help you, okay?
Lies.
And guess what? It's going to look really good to the court that you cooperated with us right from the beginning, okay? Because, I could charge you with 20 years, okay? So it's in your best interest just to talk to me.
Right.
Now, I said a lot of stupid stuff right there.
Manipulative.
Okay?
It's manipulative.
It is,
Yeah.
because if you don't know anything,
Yeah,
if you're scared, you're like, oh my God, this is terrible. Now,
But he's not the DA.
But thank you, Mess. I'm going to get to that. So what are all the stupid things that this potential investigator just said? Well, hey, it's just me and you.
No,
Yeah, there's no one else here to corroborate these statements when maybe I'm sitting in jail for the next 2 years,
Right.
and you bring this up in court, and it's your word against mine.
Right.
Okay? I'm not recording this, and I'm not taking any notes. It's just us. Yeah. So you're going to have to remember this off the top of your head again when we finally go to trial in 2 years.
Right.
All right? And this is off the top of your head, and once again, they're going to take your word and not mine. Hey, I'm going to, because I could charge you with 20 years. Yeah, you can't charge me with anything because the only people that can do that are the U.S. attorney or the district attorney.
Yeah.
That's it, all right? So talk to me and tell me all of these things, all right? The reason why a lot of people look, no. Listen to what I'm saying, and share this with your family and your friends and everybody you know, even your homies that are coming out of prison or whatever. Look, what people do and they might not even have any circumstantial evidence against them at all. You know why they go to prison? Because they talked.
Exactly.
And you start talking, and you could say 50 things. You could say 50 things to prove your innocence. You say 2 things that makes them suspicious, that's what they will remember. That's what they will write down. That's what they're going to use in court. Because guess what? What did I say? Nothing you say. Everything you say will be used against you.
Nothing is before you.
Yeah, nothing's going to help you. Yeah. And so all of these things, this is why. So what do you need to say if a cop runs up on you, you get pulled over? Look, if I get pulled over, and like I said, I cooperate with folks. I talk. I'm never raise my voice. I don't get smart. I'm not trying to be a funny guy. Hey, Mr. Dotson. Okay, Mr. Dotson, you were going X amount of speed, and you're going 50 and 30. All right. So, where are you headed? North. Okay. Yeah. So where are you coming from?
South.
Facts.
I'm headed north, so I'm coming from the south. Well, where were you before here? Officer, I really don't feel comfortable answering that question. Well, why not? Well, you know what, officer, respectfully, I'd like to use my right to remain silent. And if you actually have any more questions, I'd prefer that you speak. I have an attorney that you could speak to. You don't have to get technical. I just said that as plainly as possible.
Right.
Hey, man, we're just talking. Yeah, but you're on the job, and I respect what you do. I'm just saying, if you have any other questions, Now, could that end up, could that be a bad situation for you? Not likely, all right? The thing is that people always think, well, I have nothing, quote unquote, to hide.
Right.
And so you start talking.
Volunteering information.
Right. Because if I don't, I look bad. And that's where we come with the Fifth Amendment.
Right.
The Fifth Amendment, everybody thinks is your right against self-incrimination. That's not what the Fifth Amendment says, folks.
Yeah.
Read it. And people have gone to prison because they said exactly that. What does it sound like if I say, you know what, Mess, I'm going to stop talking because I don't want to incriminate myself?
That's incriminating itself.
Yeah, exactly.
It sounds like if I talk, I'm going to lie.
You hiding something on top.
It says if I talk, I'm going to lie.
Yeah.
Right.
So the Fifth Amendment doesn't say anything about self-incrimination.
Yeah.
It says that you have a right not to be a witness against yourself.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
The Sixth Amendment is what I got to at the end when I said your right to an attorney.
Right.
That's your Sixth Amendment right.
Counsel, yeah.
Fourth, Fifth, and Sixth. But the Fourth Amendment is the biggest thing that you need to know. The Fifth and Sixth is easy, but the Fourth Amendment is the thing you need to keep in mind because that's your right against search and seizure, unlawful search and seizure by the government.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
So that's something I really wanted to make sure I share with folks. I know it's going to piss off a lot of investigators, but guess what? If I don't talk, that means you have to do your job better.
Right.
Right?
Right.
And that's what needs to happen, and I guarantee you I'm going to get a lot of pushback, as time goes on with this, please, I hope you continue to follow the Black Sanctuary, but I guarantee I'm going to get some pushback from some folks because they're going to be like, this guy's telling people not to talk to us. It's their legal right.
Right.
They don't have to,
Just because they don't look into it in detail doesn't mean that you can't talk about it in detail.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, just so keep that in mind. I wanted to make sure I share that because that is the quickest way out of anything. You're more likely to get jammed up from talking too much than you are to, get hurt at a traffic stop.
Right.
You don't have to talk like that, but you don't have to be rude about it. You don't have to be disrespectful. Just be like, hey, you know what? I'd like to use my right to remain silent. And actually, if you have any more questions, I'd like to speak to an attorney.
Right.
Yeah.
Just leave it like that. Well, that makes you look guilty. That's perception is
not reality. Not reality.
Yeah, perception.
That's
is
your
not
perception.
Reality. That's that person's perception. So I just wanted to make sure I shared that with your listeners. That's something I definitely want you to keep in mind. But once again, I'm not an attorney. Make sure that you research this.
Yeah.
Yep. Well, there it is, man. Derrick Dotson, man. Appreciate you for coming through, man.
Your book.
Oh yes, once again,
yeah,
thank you. Yeah, The Police and Me comes out November 22nd.
2022, and it'll be on Amazon, and it should also be, by the time it comes out with all the distributors, at any place that books are sold online.
Perfect.
All right.
All right.
All right.
There it is. That's a wrap, man. Thanks for coming through, man. Appreciate you.
Appreciate you
Thank
guys.
you.
Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity. Appreciate you too, Mervis.
Yep.
Thank you.
All right. Bruce.
That concludes this week's episode. Tune in next week and check us out at thebarbergame.com.